All right, everyone. Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. We made it. It is past midnight. Daniel Starkand has a haircut. The Dodgers win by 1,000,000,000. What an unbelievable night. We appreciate you joining us. We weren't sure what the turnout would be. We got a good crowd in here tonight. So thanks to those joining us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope. I don't even think the tweet got sent out because our every Dodger fan's Twitter account has been locked by Twitter for sending too
Yeah,
many
I don't know
tweets.
what's
But
going on right now.
I mean, I'll start with just, I think, the big question that I've got. I mean, is that the best regular season game? I know there are big regular season moments we can think of, right? There are moments we can think of, start to finish. I don't think in my lifetime I've ever seen a better regular season game, at least involving the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember many regular season games, so I know this is one I'm gonna remember for a while. So I'm with you there. I don't know if it's the best. That like I said, I don't remember many, but yeah, that game was incredible. It had everything. Like it was back and forth all night. Two teams. Like I feel like there's a lot of hype coming in, even though
Totally.
it's April. It's these games don't mean a whole lot if we're being honest. Like so much is gonna change between now and October, but. I mean, there's so much hype coming in that I felt like it would be hard to live up to, and this
Yeah.
game like completely surpassed it. Yeah, so I'm with you. That was an awesome game.
Well, and
And
that's
and
exactly it.
well,
Oh, go
first
ahead.
of all, let me just say that I'm just glad the Dodgers won that. Like it would have
Yeah.
sucked to watch 5 hours of baseball for a loss. So thank you to the Dodgers. Thank you to my guy Corey Seager came through. David Price was awesome, and that was like you said, that was a fun game.
I think Daniel was getting a tad bit questionable for the post game show, and then Corey Seager hits a 2-run home run. All of a sudden, the text message flies in. We're good to go, baby. Let's fire this thing up. So we'll get to all of it. Again, we appreciate those joining us. The Dodgers win 11-6 in 12 innings, and exactly what you said, I think, is the headline. This game was hyped up. You could tell, and let's be honest. I think as Dodger fans, we've tried to downplay how much this meant to us. And yes, it means less to us as Dodger fans than it does to Padre fans. I think that much is clear. But I also think it was pretty clear by the way the Dodgers set up their starting pitchers a week ago. This was clearly a series that mattered to them. And even just as a fan watching that, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, whatever. But like, I desperately wanted to win this game. I think there is a little bit of Dodger fans wanting to show Padre fans, hey, it's cute, it's nice, you have a great team, you're coming up, but you're still little brother, you're still second best team in the National League West. And I think that's what made this so amazing is the back and forth for a team that wanted it a lot more, I think, in the Padres, but the Dodgers hung tough. They take a 4-2 lead in the sixth. They stay up by 2 runs in the eighth. They give it all back in the ninth, thinking, hey, okay, we've got a lead in the ninth inning. Kenley Jansen looks good. He blows it. So they blow the lead twice, but then neither team scores in the 10th. Neither team scores in the 11th. Dennis Santana gets out of it in the 10th. David Price gets out of it in the 11th. And then the offense comes. First pitch. I loved your tweet. Like the guy comes in the 11th for the Padres. Lefty, nasty, sidearm, underhand, whatever the heck he's doing. And it's like, great inning for that guy. He's the last guy in the bullpen. That tells you how much they think about him. He has a great inning.
Yeah.
He comes in the next inning. First pitch he throws, 2-run home run. And it's all over from there. I mean, things spiral. For Tatis has another error, potentially 2 if you wanted to be sort of generous on him, a ground ball that maybe he should have gotten to. Cronenworth comes in to pitch. Musgrove's playing left field. Cronenworth doesn't cover first base. David Price gets a sac fly. So, I mean,
Mookie strikes out.
Yeah, Mookie strikes out. I tweeted this, and it's half joking, half serious, but I think as a Dodger fan, you want to believe that this is a perfect representation, a perfect symbol or metaphor for the Dodger-Padre relationship. The Dodgers jump out to a lead. The Padres fight back. It's exciting. It's a great battle. And then the Dodgers blow them out in the end, and it's not actually a close game at the end of the day. So it felt like something there. So we'll get to some of the I don't know if we're going to do a full hour. We'll see. We've got a good crowd in there. So if people have questions, people asking about Kenley Jansen, Luke Raley getting some love in the chat. So good for him. But let's kind of get into how this game plays out. We're obviously not going to go pitch by pitch, inning by inning, but I think we'll start with a couple major storylines to me were the Dodger pitchers. And I know this feels like a million years ago, but let's talk a little bit about Walker Buehler. What did you make of Walker Buehler's performance tonight, Daniel? Again, I know this literally was multiple hours ago. Walker Buehler finishes the game 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, 93 pitches, 63 of them for strikes. On the surface, the box score, you say, hey, that's a pretty solid night. It felt, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. It didn't feel like Walker Buehler to me. Am I alone in that?
No, I'm with you. It's definitely pretty clear that he didn't have his best stuff tonight, but to his credit, he battled, and for him to get through 6 when his pitch count, was pretty high early. I didn't see him getting through 6. So, he was able to do that. He limited the damage to 2 runs. He had, a patented Walker Buehler second and third with 1 out jam that he worked out of. So yeah, I mean, I like you said, he wasn't at his best, but I just got to give him a ton of credit for battling and for him to get through 6 in a game that ends up going 12 innings. We
Yeah.
saw the Dodgers were basically out of pitchers. The Padres were straight up out of
Yeah.
pitchers. Their guy only got through, what was it, 3 2/3 or whatever. So for Buehler to do that ended up being huge. And no, he doesn't get a win, but he's just as responsible for this win as basically anyone else, in my opinion.
I think you make a great point. You're not necessarily thinking that in real time, but absolutely him getting through 6 innings, as you said. The Padres had 1 relief pitcher left, and it was a guy who threw 3 innings yesterday. The Dodgers still did have Jimmy Nelson available. They also had Scott Alexander, so it's not like the Dodgers were out of arms. I was actually a little surprised when Dennis Santana ran into some trouble when he did that they didn't go to a guy like Alexander to face Trent Grisham, but we'll get to that moment. We've got some ground to cover before we get there. Real quickly on Buehler, I don't want to dwell on him because this was, again, so long ago. It's not the story. We've talked about this a little just looking at how he has performed in 2021. If you look at some of the underlying metrics going into tonight, exit velocity against him was up from 90 to 94. Barrel percentage was up from 6.5 to 10.8. Fastball velocity down from just under 97 to about 95. Strikeout percentage down from 29% to 18%. Tonight, the fastball still sitting at 95. Strikeout percent, 16%. So, again, we're not overreacting to things. It is still a small sample size, but this is a few starts in a row where it felt inconsistent, I think is a word that somebody used in the chat. We know he's not notoriously a quick starter, so maybe we're seeing the ERA look as good as we are, and we're sort of assuming that he's going to be better at the beginning of the season. Are you still just writing this off to this is a notoriously slow starter? The ERA is better than it probably deserves to be, but hey, the ERA is what it is, and we just move on and expect that he'll get better.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there's no health issues, which as far as we know, there isn't any, then I'm not going to be concerned. Like you said, he definitely hasn't been at his best, which makes it all that more impressive that, his ERA looks as good as it does. But yeah, it's not, you'd like him to come out and be, postseason Walker Buehler all year long, but I think that's just too much to expect. So it is what it is. Hopefully, as the season goes along, he'll find a groove, and as long as he stays healthy, I still expect him to have, a great year. And hey, I mean, if him not at his best is 6 innings, 2 runs, then he's going to be incredible once he does find that groove.
Against the Padres, right? A great team. So
yeah, right.
After Buehler, you kind of, you're looking at, you say, okay, if they can get 3 innings out of Treinen, Gonzalez, Knebel, and Jansen, well, they basically do get 3 innings out of those, but it's a mess. Treinen gives up a run. Victor Gonzalez just gets 1 out, throws 2 pitches. Knebel gives up 2 runs. Jansen gives up 1 run. It was funny last night after Price gets the save, I threw out, hey, here's how my relief pitcher rankings go. And it was basically every guy who looked good in the past week looked terrible tonight. Knebel had his worst outing. Treinen Treinen didn't look great. Jansen, I mean, like, they asked him for 4 outs. He was pumping 95. I mean, there were moments when it looked like vintage Jansen. Kind of a weird scenario how it played out. But what did you make of the bullpen? I mean, Knebel obviously was great for 5.1 coming into this game. Couldn't do anything tonight. Treinen was a little bit shaky as well. I mean, both those guys struggled to throw strikes. Knebel just 15 strikes and 12 balls. Treinen 10 strikes and 8 balls. The two of them combined to give up 5 base runners in about an inning and a third. So, I'm not overreacting to that, but that was a tough one. You just expected, okay, can we get 9 outs against the Padres? And they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was definitely a rough night overall for the bullpen. If they would have done their job, we would have been doing this post-game show 2 hours ago, and we'd both be in our beds, getting some shut-eye by now. But it is what it is. This bullpen has been great. I think I saw a stat before the game tonight that, like, for the past 8 games, the Dodgers bullpen has a combined, 1.3 ERA. So I'm just going to chalk it up to they were due for a bad night. And they're facing a good lineup. So, I mean, the Padres definitely deserve some credit. Like, they could have folded a few different times in this game, and they didn't. Manny Machado, of all people, is out there stealing bases, hustling, something we never saw when he was in LA. Even when they played in the freaking World
Yeah.
Series. I mean, he hustled more in April tonight than we saw in the World Series, which is just insane to me. But yeah, it was just an off night for the bullpen. But to their credit, they got the outs when they needed to. I mean, Dennis
Yeah.
Santana, he was all over the place, it felt like, and then somehow, pulls a Houdini act and gets out of it. And then David Price is a guy who hasn't been a reliever
Yeah.
really ever. I mean, he was at the beginning of his career a little bit, but he comes in, gets his first save last night, hasn't pitched on back-to-back days basically in his whole career, comes in tonight and gives us two just
Perfect innings.
incredible innings.
Yeah.
So credit to those guys at the back end that closed it out. They picked up, the main high leverage guys who you would expect to close out a game like that.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because I think one of the narratives, and we're going to get to David Price and that storyline, because I think that might be the most significant, fascinating one to look at of all of these. There was almost a redemption arc for a bunch of different guys within the game. So you have Zach McKinstry, who has an error in the bottom of the seventh that costs the Dodgers a run. And yet, right after that, he goes and, RBI double, right? Then you've
off Pomeranz, who hadn't given up, anything all season, a tough lefty.
Exactly. And then you've got Corey Seager, who this was a play that I thought was incredibly significant that probably gets forgotten. When Machado steals second, if Corey Seager catches the ball, the game's over.
The game is over.
And I'm not even saying, even he's probably not going to tag Machado, but Machado slides 2 feet past the base. It's an easy tag. The game's over. So Seager has the big error. He goes on to hit the game-winning home run in the bottom of the 12th. And then even within the pitching staff, you've got Dennis Santana, who struggles a little bit there. He gets the hit by pitch. Bench is clear, which I got into with some people about whose fault that was. I don't know. I'll just say, look where the confrontation took place and tell me if that was the pitcher or the hitter, but we'll leave it at that. But he kind of struggles a little bit, gets himself fired up, gets everybody fired up, gets out of the jam, so there's redemption for him. Even Price gets himself, when the guy's on second, you sort of inherit a mess. David Price doesn't necessarily make it a ton easier for himself in the 11th, gets out of the 11th with some of the best hitters that the Padres have up. And so there were a number of people that kind of got themselves into trouble or caused trouble for themselves and then ended up getting out of it, which I thought was a cool thing. So let's go to Corey Seager then. He hits the massive home run. It's the moment we've been waiting for. He's been really, really good. He hasn't had a signature moment so far this season, a guy that, we've talked about, you especially. Is he an MVP candidate? This was an MVP candidate type of moment for Seager in the 12th.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy to think that if you had to pick a team MVP so far, it would be Justin Turner, I feel like, and he had some big hits in this one too. But yeah, Corey Seager had the biggest hit of the night, and it was the first pitch of the inning. Like if you were using the restroom between innings, you probably missed it. But he absolutely destroyed that ball. He did what he does best. Yeah, like you said though, he hasn't really had a signature moment up until this point. So it was good for him to finally get one, and hopefully he could carry that into the weekend, because we still got 2 more games of this.
Yeah, another one starting in about 16 hours, I believe, is the next one. But the other thing that was crazy, and Seager plays into this. I remember tweeting, I think it was in the 9th when Turner had the RBI single. It was kind of like, hey, the top of the Dodger lineup was 1 for 10, I believe, to start. That group finished 5 for 10, or maybe it was, I can't remember the exact numbers, but they finished 5 for 10 down the stretch. Tons of big hits, starting with Turner, obviously the RBI single, Corey Seager with the home run. So pretty significant, I think, for those guys to struggle early on and then to turn it around and come up with hits when they needed it. Turner with the clutch hit, obviously Seager with the biggest one of them all. And that was a nice one because it just allowed us to enjoy the 12th inning, Like, it wasn't like, okay, now we have a 1-run lead with a guy on second. It's like, okay, we have a 2-run lead, bottom of the order, pitcher has to hit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go to the last storyline here, and then we can get to some questions for folks and let people get to bed. David Price. We have tried our best to not overreact to 1 moment, to 2 moments, to a small sample size. We are still 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the regular season. We're not here to make grand pronouncements of things. We've seen what Kenley Jansen has looked like. I would argue he looked great tonight, as weird as that sounds, in a game in which he had a lead and blew it. He's throwing 95 mile an hour, getting a lot of swing and miss. Can't close the deal, though. Corey Knebel, who's looked perfect and unhittable, struggles. Blake Trinan struggles. Victor Gonzalez still looks good, only got 1 out, so maybe he got bailed out of a little bit of that.
Yeah.
David Price last night looked fantastic. obviously this is a guy, his first two, I think I tweeted this yesterday, his first two appearances of the year were his first two appearances since 2019. He struggled. Ever since then,
Yeah.
he's been absolutely unbelievable, lights out. Is David, I mean, where does David Price rank amongst Dodger relief pitchers for you right now?
Yeah, I definitely think he's up there. I mean, he got off to a slow start, like you just mentioned, but that was kind of predictable.
Yeah.
I feel like he, like you said, he didn't pitch all of last year, and not only that, he's moving to a completely new
Yeah.
role this year. The guy's been a starter his whole career. Like, it's so much different being a starter when you have as many hours as you want before the game to prepare to be ready for that first pitch of the game, compared to being a reliever where they might call you on the phone and say, "Hey, we need you in two batters," and you could maybe throw like 10
Right.
balls and then you're in the game. Like, it's completely different. So credit to David Price. It looks like he's found his form. He looked awesome tonight. He was just painting. Like, there was nothing the hitters could do when he's pitching the way he was pitching tonight. So I'm not putting him at the top of the list by any means. Like, I need to see it more, but he's definitely climbing up the ranks. And if he could continue this, he could arguably be the team's best reliever, the way he looked tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm very ecstatic about David Price right now. The guy is just the consummate professional. He hasn't pitched in back-to-back days. I bet the plan was for him not to pitch tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, if the plan was for him to pitch, he would have been in there earlier. So
Yeah.
I think they wanted to stay away from him, but it got to the point where they just couldn't anymore. So yeah, I mean, Price looks great, and I mean, but I definitely got to see it more before I say David Price for closer or
Yeah.
anything like that.
2 innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, no hits for David Price. The walk was an intentional walk. He gets a ground out from Cronenworth, strikes out Hosmer, strikes out Myers, comes back, Profar out, Musgrove out, Caratini out. So, I mean, yes, the second inning, the game is over. It's the bottom of the lineup. You get a pitcher in there, but absolutely fantastic stuff from David Price. And yeah, I mean, it's like you said, I think you can write off, and 16 of his 18 pitches, by the way, for strikes. So you want to talk about pounding the strike zone. 16 of 18 pitches for strikes is pretty unbelievable. As Luck posts in the YouTube, I mean, this is a guy who's got experience too. The moment is not too big for him. In any situation, it's a lefty, which is nice. That kind of messes with some people. He can obviously throw with some velocity. He can move the ball to the left, to the right, inside, outside, up and down. He's got a bunch of different pitches, so he has a ton of assets, I think, for the Dodgers as a relief pitcher. And, a couple of people are saying Price for closer. I don't think it's that crazy. I don't think one bad night from Knebel sort of removes him from the conversation. He had looked unhittable until tonight, but I definitely think it puts the Dodgers in a position where the number of guys that you trust at the very end of games is growing. I think it started with Knebel, Treinen, or I shouldn't even say, I don't know if Knebel is in there. I think it was Jansen, Treinen, and Gonzalez to start. Knebel has worked his way into that conversation. I think Price is definitely worked his way into that conversation. You can make an argument for a guy like Jimmy Nelson. Does he belong there? I mean, even Scott Alexander, who nobody really likes to talk about, has been really good in the moments that he's had to come in for the Dodgers. And so it was just a fascinating game, the way that it all played out. The guys that you would expect to perform well didn't perform well pitching-wise, and the guys that you don't expect kind of did. So I guess we'll talk about it because it's interesting. I mean, with the Dennis Santana thing, he hits the guy. My perspective, and then we can talk about, because I think this plays into the Dodger-Padre rivalry, and essentially I want to eventually get to, is this something we're going to see play out over the next 2 nights, 4 games next weekend as well? To me, Santana hits the guy. The guy looks like he's just minding his own business, walking down the first base line. He kind of looks over to Santana. Santana maybe makes like a kissing face towards him, it looked like. The guy seemed calm. The confrontation happens at the baseline, which to me means the pitcher was probably the instigator of it. But I don't know if you have a perspective on that, and then you can follow it up with, does this mean anything, or is this all just water under the bridge?
Yeah, let me just start by saying I didn't study this confrontation by any means. Like, I don't really know what happened. Like, I saw it live in the couple replays or whatever, but I didn't really dig too far deep into it. The one thing I will say is we don't know what words were said from either guy, so it's possible that as Mateo was walking up the line, maybe he said something to Santana and that set him off. Or maybe you could definitely be right. Like, Santana was clearly fired up in the moment. So with that being said, I'm not making too much of it. Like, it even like when they're going at each other, it didn't look like any fights were gonna happen. Honestly, the most aggressive person was Max Muncy, who came running in to pull Santana away. So but we've seen these two teams get into it in the past,
Yeah.
right? Like we saw what happened in the playoffs last year. We saw in the regular season when Grisham pimped the home run and the Dodgers took, exception to that. So I think this is definitely a growing rivalry. It's pretty clear that these two teams don't like each other. And I think, if you needed more evidence that, these two teams didn't like each other, that was
Yeah.
it right there. And also just that Manny Machado, just the fact that he's out there hustling like it's game 7 of the World Series, I think it's pretty clear that that guy does not like the Dodgers for whatever reason. So yeah, I definitely think we're going to see more of this. I don't know if we're going to see, an all-out benches clearing brawl, but it feels like, it's building up to something. I don't even know if we'll see a game as good as this
Yeah.
between these two
Hard to
teams, but I
imagine.
mean, they play 18 more times, so I'm sure something is going to happen
Yeah.
in those 18 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dave Roberts after the game has already kind of said, yeah, I mean, that felt like a rivalry tonight. That's something that he has kind of downplayed, it felt like in the past, calling this a rivalry, but I think it's
Mhm.
impossible to ignore that as well. So definitely interesting. And yeah, I mean, it feels like you have some guys in this rivalry. I mean, you have Justin Turner and Manny Machado talking at third base. Like a bunch of these guys clearly like each other. There's not bad blood between every person on every team, but it also seems like you have some guys that maybe are more ready to throw down than others when it comes to some of
Yeah.
this stuff. I mean, Santana definitely seems like he was sort of almost actively looking for something. Now, hey, maybe that's what got him fired up and got what he needed. I mean, it definitely looked like Mark Pryor was having to calm him down in the dugout. Like it was sort of like calm down, rubbing the shoulder a little bit. But hey, you can't complain. The guy got the outs that he needed to get. He strikes out Tatis with the bases loaded. So a huge moment for him. It's a guy that you and I have talked about. We both like. The stuff is there. I mean, who knows what that means for his career to come into that moment, to get fired up, to have Tatis with the bases loaded in the bottom of, to him, what feels like probably the biggest game he's ever pitched in, and for him to be able to get a strikeout looking there, big moment for Dennis Santana. So I don't want to keep us up here all night. If people have questions, General John X wants to say, can we talk about Luke Raley for a moment? Luke Raley absolutely demolishes a baseball, hardest hit baseball by any Dodger. Big home run for him early in the game. I'll admit his first at bat, if I'm remembering right, again, this all happened a really long time ago. His first at bat, he came up in a big moment. I believe they had runners on first and second and 2 outs. This is top of the second and grounds out. And I kind of thought to myself, like, man, I don't know. Like, is this the guy you want up in this spot? I don't know who they would put behind him. Obviously, some of those guys, Matt Beatty, AJ Pollock, they all were pretty brutal in the innings, in the at-bats that they had. And then he comes back in the 5th inning. McKinstry strikes out, and Raley hits a 436-foot bomb to tie the game in the top of the 5th. So we've seen a small sample size, but I've been fascinated. I mean, Roberts keeps throwing him in there. Typically, a guy gets called up like this, and he takes Matt Beatty's spot on the bench, and Beatty's playing every day. Luke Raley is playing
Yeah.
every day. What have you thought about Luke Raley? Obviously, the home run tonight, but what have you thought of him overall?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be impressed when he, hits a ball that hard. That ball was absolutely destroyed. So credit to him there. I haven't really seen enough of him to make a real opinion. Like I didn't outside of these few games, like I don't think I've ever watched
Yeah.
Luke Raley before, like maybe a couple of spring training at bats, but other than that, like I don't know a whole lot about the guy. But I will say I do think it's very telling that when there's the Dodgers starting center fielder went down, Cody Bellinger, they have another prospect in DJ Peters who we assumed he would be the one they called up, and it wasn't him.
Yeah.
It was Luke Raley. So that obviously tells you that the organization thinks something of Raley. And like you just said, the fact that he's starting over Matt Beatty, who made the opening day roster, has been on the team for a couple years now, and it's Luke Raley who's getting the starts. And it's not a case of righty lefty or anything like that because they both bat
Play
left-handed.
the same
So
positions.
yeah, they play the same position. So I think it's pretty clear that the organization likes this guy, and he showed why tonight with that home run. I'm not expecting him to be some sort of breakout star. I think that title belongs to Zach McKinstry. But
Yeah.
I've liked what I've seen out of Raley so far, and he's definitely playing his role to this point.
Yeah, and if for those that might not know the backstory on Raley, he was part of the 2016 draft class that you're going to keep hearing about: Dustin May, Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Zach McKinstry, Tony Gonsolin, DJ Peters. Raley was right in the midst of that. Mitch White was part of that group. Raley was a 7th-round pick. Played for the Dodgers for a couple years. He was part of the trade. He was traded to Minnesota in exchange for Brian Dozier. And then when the Dodgers traded Kenta Maeda to Minnesota to get Brusdar Graterol, Raley came back to the Dodgers last year. So a good performance for him, 2 for 6 tonight. Obviously, he had the double the other night. So He's got a 250 batting average so far, but exciting for him to get his first home run in there
Yeah.
as well. You mentioned Zach McKinstry. I mean, another guy, 3 for 6 tonight. Him and Justin Turner paced the Dodgers. Both were 3 for 6. McKinstry, 3 for 6 with 3 strikeouts as well. But he gets 2 RBIs. So the RBI double is a big one there. And I mean, that's another moment that we don't have to remember because they won. But let's not forget in the top of the eighth, they had second and third with 1 out after McKinstry's double. They couldn't convert any of those into runs. I thought maybe Muncy should have scored on the first ground ball. The infield's playing back and doesn't score. Muncy's not the quickest guy in the world. I mean, I know he's deceptively fast, but I felt like he should have scored anyways. But McKinstry, another big night for him. Another guy, he makes the error. Obviously pressing, that feels like a big moment. Got to turn the double play. Overreacts a little bit, but he comes right back. And as you mentioned, RBI double off of Pomeranz, who's been unhittable this year.
Yeah, I've loved watching McKinstry play so far this year. The kid's just an absolute gamer. Like you could tell he's just got a slow heartbeat. Like the moment's not too big for him, which is so cool to see because he's joining a team that's got all stars
Yeah.
at every position. And if you look at the stats, he's been, as good, if not better than most of them. And this is his first debut season. So yeah, we talked all offseason about how we weren't really worried about the loss of Kike because of this guy.
Yeah.
We even went as far as saying we thought it would be an upgrade, at least offensively. And to this point, he's proved us exactly right. The defense is a little shaky at times. I mean, he's versatile. He plays second, short, left, right.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays all over. But when the ball's hit to him, you're kind of holding your breath a little bit. And I think that's just the case of, he's playing a lot of positions that he hasn't seen a lot of time at. Like, it's not like he was doing this in the minors.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure in the minors he was playing, shortstop or second base and just playing there all the time, maybe moving around a little bit. But yeah, what he's brought to this club has been invaluable so far, especially with so many guys dealing with injuries.
Yeah.
Like, just the fact that you don't have to worry about, that Gavin Lux is out for tonight or AJ Pollock's dealing with a minor injury, because you could just sub in these guys like McKinstry and Luke Raley, and you don't skip a single beat. So it's just a testament to this organization. The Dodgers are the best at drafting and developing.
Yeah.
And it looks like they've done it again with Zach McKinstry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to, we got a couple more questions here. Kenley Jansen. I mean, a lot of people are asking, there's a debate. Was Kenley Jansen good or bad tonight? It's a really fascinating conversation. They ask him to get 4 outs. He comes in and does his job in the 8th inning in a big spot, comes back in the 9th inning, walks Machado. We know that it's basically a free base if you ever try and steal. I don't understand why more teams don't take second base on Jansen. He doesn't even pretend to hold these guys on, basically. Machado does it. We've already gone over the Corey Seager, situation there. But he was touching 95, getting lots of swings and misses, but he also gives up a run. So kind of if you're giving a final grade to Kenley Jansen tonight, is it like a B, C, A? What do you have for Jansen tonight?
Yeah, I'll give him a B plus. I don't think he was bad by any means. I mean, you just kind of laid it all out. Like, if the defense picks him up there, the game was over hours ago. He gets a 4-out save. He's pumped up. He's talking in post game about how he's angry and got a chip on his shoulder, and we're all, cheering him on. Like, let's go, Kenley. But it didn't work out that way. It was unfortunate. Seager doesn't catch that ball. Then Hosmer, hits a ground ball that barely finds its way through somehow. I feel like that always happens to Kenley. Like, he doesn't give up hard contact, but somehow finds a way to get screwed. But I don't think he was perfect by any means tonight. Like, his command was a little off. Ideally, you don't want to put the tying run on base, even if it is Machado. But I thought he pitched well enough to get out of it tonight. And if he's going out there and pumping 95 every night, then I think he's going to have a really good season. Like, no, he didn't get the results he wanted tonight, but I thought the stuff was good. So, I mean, I'm not sitting here saying Jansen should be the everyday closer or anything like that. I'm sure a lot of the people in the comments right now, but I think if we're getting this Jansen, I think he's going to have a really good year.
Yeah, he throws 17 strikes, 9 balls. We know that's a big thing for him is can he control the zone? And I think velocity. I mean, when he is touching 95, you saw guys just swinging and missing, swinging and missing. Again, now, I'm normally the overwhelming Kenley defender. I will say the Hosmer single that got through was a hard hit baseball. It was like over 100 miles an hour, I think. So, normally I'm quick to defend. It's like you said. I mean, it was a perfectly placed baseball, but it was solid contact. So I'll be willing to admit it where that exists. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people agreeing with you. B plus feels about right. It was one of those things where It just happens. I mean, like, the thing about relief pitchers is even if you have a guy that has a 2 ERA, which we would all die to have a relief pitcher with a 2 ERA, that means he's going to give up a run 2 out of every 9 times he comes into a game. This was just one of those. He walks a guy, he steals second, they can't get the tag down, moves the guy over, and then a seeing eye single gets through. So I think B+ feels about right there. But yeah, okay, last question we got for you, Daniel. People want to know about the hair. They want somebody asks if you got made fun of on the Lakers Nation channel or something, and that's why you got your haircut, or what the story is. So
I will say I did get made fun of on the Lakers Nation channel, but I thought that was hilarious. That is not the reason I got the haircut. I was just planning to get it cut for a while now, and I just kind of waited, and it got to the point where I was just over it. Like, I was just laying in my bed last night, and it was itchy, and I was sweating, and I was just like, I'm so over this. I want to feel a breeze on my neck again. I want to, see my ears again. Like, I was just so over it. It had been over a year. Yeah. I had grown it out since the start of the pandemic, and now that I just got my vaccine the other day. So now that I'm vaccinated, I feel like I could put that point, the pandemic point of my life, behind me a little bit. And now I'm back to, my regular hairstyle, which it just feels so much better. I feel like a new man, honestly.
Brian says it looks like you've got the 1990s Mike Piazza haircut, which I think is a pretty good, there you go. So
I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, let the record show Dodgers 1-0 since Daniel got his haircut. So we'll see if that continues as well. But hey, we appreciate it. We've had a huge crowd. We were debating whether or not we should do this. It's 12:45 in the morning. My 6-month-old is not sleeping in her nursery because I'm currently recording in the nursery, filming in the nursery. My wife is not thrilled. She thought this was going to start at like 10:30. It started at midnight. It started at 12:15. So here we are. We appreciate you all. We have a huge crowd. We have a huge night. So everybody, we appreciate you joining us. Just a reminder, Daniel and I do 2 shows a week. At least. We're going to record every Monday morning. Daniel and I are going to record a show kind of recapping the week prior, recapping the weekend, and previewing the week ahead. So that'll be recorded and posted on Mondays. And then we're going to go live once a week, either on a Thursday night or a Friday night. So next week, we're going to go live on Thursday night. That's going to be the opening of the next series against the Padres. So make sure you join us for that. We have a number of other things going on. We post videos regularly. So if you're new to us, we appreciate you joining. Make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell. At the beginning of every week, we posted a video tonight previewing the Padres series, or this morning, I should say, yesterday morning, whatever, previewing the series. We gave you 2 bets that you should take. We said Dodgers money line, which was a winner for you. We also said the under, which of course was a terrible bet to make tonight. Too many unearned runs. I blame all the unearned runs, and I blame extra innings. So good advice from us, but make sure you check that out. It's still good advice. You
also said Dodgers money line, I will say, and that whoever bet that cashed in. So.
Yeah, you probably stressed out of your mind the entire game betting minus 155 on that, but it paid out for you. So we appreciate you joining us. Everybody enjoy your night. There's no better way to go to sleep. Close your eyes. We're going to let Vince Scully take us home and put us to bed. We appreciate you. Check out DodgerBlue.com for all the post-game quotes and everything you need. Enjoy the rest of your night.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.